I know it's only been 2 preseason games, but if you needed a quarterback and you had a choice of taking Trevor Siemien or Brock Osweiler right now, a guy to develop for the future, who would you take?
That's too early. You know, I answer every question. I give you a spot.
That's fair.
Not a spot-on answer, but I will give you an answer on the spot, to use those 2 words. But we need to see a bit more out of Trevor Siemien. He's got the strongest arm of anybody out there. He's got probably the strongest upside because he was hurt last year. But you have to think about, he spent time with a guy that's not in the league. And he did have turnovers.
Yeah, when he was healthy at Northwestern, he was terribly inconsistent.
So I'm not, as Gary Kubiak told us after the game in the clubhouse, in the locker room, media room, off to the side, and he said, no question about his arm, but can we get everything else to catch up to his arm? And that's the way he put it.
Yeah.
And you've been right about Gary. Gary, I think, is being so much more honest than John Fox is.
Incredibly transparent.
He doesn't really sit there and think out his answers. He gives you exactly what he thinks.
Yeah.
And John Fox was always measured in everything he said, so you couldn't really tell. But I think if, boy, that's a hard one. I think you keep both of them, and if Peyton Manning retires after this year, let the 2 of them go at it. Zach's out of the mix.
Yeah, no doubt. You know, they have a roster problem. If they like Trevor Siemien enough to keep him, they're going to have to keep him on the 53, because chances are he will not get through waivers. Somebody else will pick him up. So now you're talking about 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Are you keeping 3 kickers on the roster? You got to make a decision there soon too. Those are 2 spots that when you were going into training camp, you thought might be available for other guys. So now, yeah, I think I'm with you there. If they're keeping 3 quarterbacks, you cannot keep 3 kickers.
You got to keep in mind, they only dress, what, 48 for a game?
Yes.
Yeah, there's guys
40,
that maybe
45. 45, 47.
Yeah,
you know what? It changes every year. So, hey, Jess, check out how many guys are dressed for each NFL game this year.
So 47.
How many dress on game day?
It's 6 inactives. So
47.
That's your 3rd quarterback.
Yeah.
So you're not going to play all those guys anyway.
Yeah.
So do you keep 4th tight end, or do you keep a 9th offensive lineman, or do you keep a 9th linebacker, or do you keep, when you're playing a 3-4, might you not keep 6 defensive linemen?
See, I think you're going to, and this again comes from Gary Kubiak talking after a practice one day last week. He likes the depth at linebacker, especially for special teams purposes. Sure. So I think he's going to keep an extra linebacker for special teams.
Yeah, you keep defensive backs and linebackers because they at speed, they can tackle.
Right.
So that's where you tend maybe not to take a 9th offensive lineman. Teams tend to get by. Have you noticed over the years, toughest guy on the football team is an offensive lineman. They go out and their knee is turned this way, and they come back in on the next play. They play with broken legs and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So you can get by with 2 guys that can play center, a guy that's a utility guy that can play both guards, and a guy that can play both tackles, and maybe 1 other. So that's 8. You don't keep 9. You don't ever keep 9. You keep 8 at the most. That's where you can squeeze out a 3rd quarterback, but they don't play anyway. Ben Garland was on the team as an offensive lineman last year. He didn't suit up until about 3 games to go. Those are in and out guys. And you stash is not the right word. You put a couple of guys of your 10 that are offensive linemen on your practice squad, and they come up right away.
Like Schofield last year.
And Schofield this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Schofield isn't going to make this team.
If he makes it, yeah.
He's not going to make the team, but I think he's a guy that can slide back on to the inactive squad, to the practice squad.
Yeah, the Siemien thing, it does throw things for a little bit of a loop because he's taken up a roster spot.
But the Broncos had 3 quarterbacks last year.
Not every team keeps 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Not every team. In fact, there was a couple of years ago.
Well, because they don't have 3 quarterbacks, Les.
That segment sponsored.
If you only have 2 cars, you don't need a 3-car garage because you don't have but 2 cars.
True. That segment sponsored by Blake Street Tavern. 3 bars under one roof, 18,000 square feet. Go downstairs, too. They've got that 6,000 square foot underground social with all the games. They've got 60 HD TVs. It's the Blake Street Tavern. It's Denver's best sports bar food in the city. And they are just at 23rd and Blake. Easy to get to, just a couple of blocks north of Coors Field.